Hi, I'm Caleb. I'm with Troop OH360 out of Valley View Village, Ohio, and I'm going to talk to you today about camping pocket knives and how to sharpen them. Let's start by taking a look at a few common examples of knives that might be carried by a trailman. Over here on the left, we have two small Gerber knives. On the right, we have three different size Kershaws. We also have two nice examples of some multi-bladed knives, an Uncle Henry penknife and a classic Swiss Army knife. And although these knives have their differences, there are a couple common traits when it comes to blades. One being that the steel used is generally a softer steel, which means that it will not hold an edge as long, but it will be easier to get a sharp edge back on them. Number two is that they share the same basic profile, meaning that most of these blades are straight and then curve up to the point. Thirdly, they all share the same basic grind, meaning the edge here is a saber grind, which is a double beveled, double-sided, symmetrical knife grind. To get a better understanding of the saber grind geometry, let's take a closer look. What I've drawn here on the board is a sliced view of the blade geometry, meaning that if I were to take this knife here and cut the blade in half and look at it on end, that's what this picture represents. Now, a saber grind is a double beveled blade, like we talked about, and this first large bevel here is generally going to be 10 to 15 degrees. On some knives, it may be more, it may be less. This saber grind also has the secondary bevel, which is what you're actually going to sharpen. Do not make the mistake of trying to put this big bevel on your stone and trying to sharpen it. The part that you're actually going to focus on sharpening is the small secondary bevel on your blade. On most knives, it's whether or not you have a saber grind, you can look and see that there is generally a shiny secondary edge on the blade. That is how you know you have a saber grind. Let's take a closer look at what you could take out in the tray with you. These here are some simple ways to do that. This is a piece of MDF with some fine and super fine grit sandpaper glued to it. And this one here is a piece of planed hardwood with a leather strap and fine grit sandpaper glued to the back. Both of these you can make on your own very easily. Just be sure that when you glue it down, that you don't leave ridges from the glue. To do that, you can use a small J roller like this, or a bigger one. We also would recommend sometimes using a sprayed adhesive, which is easier to get a consistent glue up. Now that we've taken a look at the knife profiles in different sharpening systems, let's take a look at how to sharpen your knife while out on the trail. Now let's look at some of the technique of sharpening. First, I'm going to show you how to ensure that you're on your secondary bevel. So you're going to take a Sharpie marker, carefully just cover that secondary bevel with Sharpie on both sides. Lay it flat on the primary bevel, and then you're going to slowly rotate it up, and you should feel a slight flat spot, and that is your secondary bevel. So you're going to slowly pull it toward yourself, lightly, rotating it up, applying light pressure just a couple times. And then you can see on that secondary bevel, up towards the tip of the knife, I'm holding my angle pretty well, but right in the middle here, I need to go a little higher on that secondary bevel. So we're actually going to tip the knife backwards a little bit, meaning that it's flat. I brought it too far forward, so I'm going to lay it a little bit flatter this time. You can see now there's still a little bit left, but I took a bunch of that extra off of there. Now, the Sharpie is really good when you're at home, but out on the trail you're probably not going to have it. So I like to put a little bit of water on my stone, which does a couple things. It helps the sandpaper last longer because you are removing the metal chips from the sandpaper, and it will also help you tell whether or not you're at the right angle. So spread it out first, just use your finger. And then again, you're going to lay it flat, roll it up, and you'll actually kind of see the water kind of beat up if you do it right. So you can see here, water is kind of beaten up onto the edge of the blade because it has nowhere else to go because the blade is contacting the sandpaper at the correct angle. Now, this won't help you from tipping too far forward, but if you have a habit of tipping too far back, like laying it flat here, see how it's not rolling up onto the blade much? That's because I'm laying it straight flat on the primary bevel. When I roll it up, it rolls onto the blade just a little bit. A lot like a squeegee. Also, with these saber grinds, you want to keep track of how many strokes you take on each side to keep the blade symmetrical. So you can do it side to side like this, go up that way, pull that back that way, or if you get in a comfortable position where you're hitting that angle right, at 1, 2, 3, 4, and then do the same number on this other side. Another tip is when you're learning to sharpen, try and keep your arms as tight to your body as possible, because it's a lot easier to move your whole body in a repetitive motion rather than having your arms out here trying to keep that repetitive motion. So keep your elbows locked kind of close into your hips and just turn your whole body. And also, be careful when you're pulling back towards yourself not to push too hard so you don't hurt yourself as you're sharpening your knife. Another thing is when you're out on the trail, you ideally want to look for a picnic table or an old stump to set this on and do it. But as long as you're practiced and it's okay with your leaders, you can also hold it in your hand and push away. And then when you go toward yourself, be careful not to go too far and cut yourself. Just light, easy strokes. Starting in a flat spot, pushing, is slowly rotating, lifting your hand up. Lifting your hand up, not like this, because you are doing two motions at once. You are curving this way and also lifting the blade that way. To stay on the secondary bevel. And again, that's where the nice Sharpie trick comes in, because if there's a black left on the edge, whether at the top of the edge or bottom of the edge, that's how you can tell whether or not you need to go up more or keep it rolled back a little more to make sure you're getting that whole consistent edge to keep your knife symmetrical and the same. Once you are done sharpening with the sandpaper or stone, next you will go to the strop. Now you want to make sure that if you're taking a strop out with you, that before you go, you load it up with compound to make it work the best. Now when you're stropping with a Swiss Army knife like this, or any slip joint knife, meaning that a knife that doesn't have a lock on it to keep it from closing, you have to be extra careful to not, when you're drawing backwards, to not make it close on your fingers. Now with the strop, you're going to find that angle, and you're actually drawing backwards, like putting light pressure, drawing backwards, putting a nice polished edge, and refining the edge to make it slice better. And sometimes, like say you maybe got shavings for a fire, or you use your knife to cut some rope or something, sometimes just running the strop across your knife is all you need to get your edge back to razor sharp and ready to use. Once you've practiced in sharpening your knife, a good way to test if it's sharp is to cut a piece of paper on edge. Now don't be discouraged if you have trouble sharpening freehand, because it takes a lot of practice. So just have some time and get out there and have fun learning the art of sharpening.